New York City's Office of Emergency Management has its hands full today. Well, bracing for today's heavy rains, high winds. They're also among the agencies on the front lines of the migrant crisis as well, and helping asylum seekers facing eviction deadline today.
The mayor has said one thing to us. He does not want families and children on the street.
This is not going to be a city where we're going to place children and families on the street and have them sleep on the street. That is not going to happen.
So the city has helped more than 90,000 migrants over the last 2.5 years. Now the city is taking drastic measures to manage the migrant crisis. We'll get into that, but there's also a big storm headed our way, as you've been hearing all morning long, so he's very busy. Commissioner of New York's Office of Emergency Management, Zach Iscol, joining us this morning. Thanks for making the time, Commissioner.
Absolutely, it's great to be with you
on a very busy day. And before we get to the storm and the migrant crisis, I want to give you the opportunity to remember your predecessor, Joe Esposito, passed away yesterday after a battle with cancer here. And I mean, what a legacy he leaves behind in service to New York.
You know, I was talking to my first deputy about it this morning, and there was nobody like Joe Esposito. He made everybody feel like they were his best friend. New Year's Eve, he made a point every New Year's Eve of going out and shaking the hand of every single city worker that was out there. He was chief of department for 13, 14 years. I mean, that's a role, chief of department for the NYPD. People are usually in that role for maybe months, maybe a couple years.
He had the longest tenure.
He had the longest tenure. He was my predecessor in this role. When I took over, he immediately took me to lunch. He always made himself available for phone calls, for guidance, for mentorship. It is a huge loss for the city. It's felt at our agency. And you know, our hearts are with his family. And I will say, you know, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, and even after he was sick, he continued to work with the city at DOB. He would show up at scenes. And there were these moments where we'd be in the middle of some sort of emergency. We'd all be on the call, and he would show up on the call. And it just, even just a couple months ago, and it just changed everything and gave us all so much hope and gumption, you know. He's missed.
Yes, definitely. No nonsense guy. Our condolences to his family and all of his friends. But moving on to the subject at hand today, this storm. How is the city preparing? And are there any particular areas within the 5 boroughs that you're most worried about right now?
Yeah. I mean, these are times where I do wish I could pick up the call and call somebody like Joe Esposito. Fortunately, we have an amazing team. And the men and women of this city have been working not only through the weekend for the winter weather that we had over the weekend, but they've been preparing for tonight's weather as well. So we have crews that are out there clearing catch basins. We have 311 that's preparing to take calls. I was just on the phone with the head of Con Ed. They're preparing to put additional crews out there. And this weather event, really what we're looking at is 3 things. We have concerns about coastal flooding in and around Jamaica Bay, places like Howard Beach, Brighton Beach, Broad Channel.
Usual suspects.
Usual suspects. We have concerns about high winds tonight. We're looking at some gusts of as high as 70 miles per hour. That can lead to issues with like down power lines. So then you start to worry about places, you know, northern Bronx, parts of Brooklyn, certainly parts of Queens, eastern Queens, southern Queens, Staten Island. So those are all places that we have our eyes on for down power lines. And then there's also just concerns about rain. Fortunately, this weather event, it looks like the worst of it is going to be between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. That can shift. And based on how it shifts, the one thing that we're really concerned about is if it shifts into Wednesday morning and it coincides with the high tide cycle, now you're looking at the difficulty of it, the water running off in places like the Belt Parkway. There's some flooding along the Bronx River, right, due to snow melt and other issues. So we've got our eye on all of this. The city's doing a lot to prepare. And what I say always is, while the city is out there taking care of these things, it's really important for New Yorkers to prepare as well, right? Make sure that you have some flashlights available. Make sure that you have an emergency kit and supplies. Make sure that you're staying abreast of the forecast because it can change. And sign up for Notify NYC.
The reality here, you know, in real talk, there's going to be flooding. We're going to see it on the streets. We're going to see. What about the subways? How is the subway system preparing, right? Because when you have this much water, it's got to go somewhere. Mixed with the snow and everything else that we've had the last couple of weeks, there's just a heck of a lot of water around.
So right now, we have less of a concern. We're expecting possibly up to 4 inches in some parts of the city. Subways tonight are less of a concern. It can always happen. I think one of the difficulties of forecasting is the coastal flooding. We can sort of model that really well because you know where the water's coming from. It's coming from the ocean. Rainfall, the entire city is in a rainfall flood zone. And so it's really hard to predict exactly where that rain might fall and where those impacts might be. I know that the MTA has done some work to shore up the subway system. I think some of that is mostly not just on trying to keep water out, but also getting the lines running really quickly. And when you think about the September storm, we had a lot of flooding in the subway system, but they were able to get the subways back up and running very, very quickly.
Are you
And
looking
that's
out for
the key.
those households also that had the problems with flooded basements, making sure that those basement apartments?
Always. And we've done a lot of work with community-based organizations,
Okay.
immigrant groups, outreach to folks who live in basement apartments. One of the big pushes this year is we've got to get basement apartments legalized so we can bring them up to code and make them safe. That's something that really needs to happen, and I hope to see in Albany's agenda, because that's in the state's hands.
Okay, let's talk about the migrant crisis, because
Yeah.
this is also under your purview as well, and there's a lot going on with the migrant crisis. Today is the evictions are taking place for families, but there was also some violent incidents that took place over the weekend involving NYPD officers. There was a stabbing, and there was this talk of increasing security at some of these facilities. What's the latest here, and is there money to increase the security?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And the safety of folks in our care is always of paramount importance. And I think I just want to remind everybody, we have now taken in and provided care for about 170,000 people. To put that in perspective, Albany, the city of Albany is about 95,000 people, 98,000 people. It's a lot of people. The fact that we have not had more incidents is pretty remarkable. And we have amazing security teams. We have NYPD that are out there, but this is something that we're always looking at. As the mayor said at the press conference yesterday, we've been looking at putting in metal detectors. We have cameras that are out at some of these facilities. We're always adjusting the amount of security guards and the police presence. Some of the sites right now, we have more of an active police presence than we have had in the past. And it really varies. Some of it's based on the population mix, right? We have more issues at places with single adult males than with families with children. There's factors like the weather that sometimes create more friction in different places. But it's hard. You know, the city right now is struggling with not just a national crisis, an international crisis.
So metal detectors are a real possibility.
It's a real possibility. It's something that we're looking at. But this is, as the mayor has said repeatedly, this is a national crisis. It demands national leadership. And it really is not right that the federal government has abdicated its responsibility, not just to New York, but to border towns in Texas, to places like Denver and Chicago. I mean, I talk to my counterparts all over the country. They are all struggling with this issue, and we're all waiting for the federal government to do its part in acting and doing what it can do to handle this immigration crisis.
Well, you clearly have your hands full on many avenues, and clearly today is one of them.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning, and
Yeah.
good luck with the storm today.
Thank you so much. So it's great to be